Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Soo, your East Oakland advocate. Well, today I want to talk about past mayors that have been recalled or very controversial. And I'm going to limit this to starting at the 1900s and moving forward. Before that, there was all sorts of stuff, but you can go back and look at that for yourself. But I'm just going to highlight a couple of past mayors. And one mayor, the first one up here, is Frank Mott. Frank Mott, he was Oakland mayor between 1905 and 1915. And the reason why I start with him is because he was one mayor here in Oakland that survived a mayoral recall. And in his recall, that was back in August 3rd, and he was able to keep his seat. And he won the election by 4 votes. 4 votes, Frank Mott. And one of the things that he was so controversial, he was a business owner, which is good. That's what I would like to see in an Oakland mayor, a Oakland business owner, a politician that is born and raised Oakland, or something to that. And he was a progressive mayor at the time. And that was very interesting because back then, progressives were very far and few here in Oakland, and there was a lot of conservatives that really was a majority block of the voters of Oakland back then. And he came into a lot of controversy because, if you remember, that was also the time when a lot of Chinese were coming into Oakland from San Francisco. Oakland didn't have much of a Asian population. It was predominantly white. My great-grandfather and family were here already in Oakland. And we had our cannery open and producing canned goods at the end of 1905. And the reason why I bring up Frank Mott was because of the 1906 earthquake. My family, my great-grandfather needed property to build homes for the children, his 5 that were here in the U.S. And that was my grandfather also. And so, since Chinese could not own property by U.S. law at that time, because 1882 Chinese Exclusionary Act and also several other laws and regulations that went in the books against the Chinese people specifically. But our cannery was recognized as white-owned at the time because a majority of the people were Caucasian. And so we hid the Chinese roots of Pacific Coast Cannery, and we were able to buy, the cannery was able to purchase 1 square block here in the city of Oakland, and that was on Santa Clara Avenue. And my great-grandfather had 5 homes built, and I had the last one. I owned the last one, 361 Santa Clara Avenue. And that was completed and moved in 1917. My great-grandfather was in his early 20s at the time and a full homeowner. And people say, well, how is that? Because the property and the homes were in trust. They were in trust by the cannery. And the cannery owned a Bank of Canton. And so the titles of all of those properties, those homes, were transferred into the Bank of Canton for safe holding and trust. And the thing about the Canton Bank back then, our headquarters was in Hong Kong. Hong Kong, if you remember, was under British rule. And so at the time, our company was, I should say the bank, was protected because it was under British sterling silver, not gold. And so that was one of the reasons why our bank, that my great-grandfather was the president of, survived because of good strategizing and having the wherewithal to think ahead as to what the best possible solution was. But anyway, Frank Mott sold 1 square block of property to my great-grandfather's Pacific Coast Cannery and began construction. Well, that didn't fare well with the folks of Piedmont. Piedmont did not exist at that time. That was an extension of Oakland, and so they did not want the intrusion of Chinese into their area. And so they incorporated the city of Piedmont in 1907 because of my great-grandfather and helping the Chinese to establish here in Oakland. There was a lot of fights, a lot of burnings, murders, beatings, and so it was a very violent period. But we did establish a foothold in the Oakland Chinatown, specifically 8th and Webster. And our family still maintains a building on 9th Street in the Oakland Chinatown. And so that was one of the big controversies in the early 1900s, and it related to my family. The next one that all of you are probably very familiar with, especially if you ride BART, is the turn that from Lake Merritt Station, and you're going to City Center, 12th Street. And you know that the BART train has to slow down to a crawl, has to actually move less than 20 miles an hour is the maximum speed. And they usually go much slower because it's a maximum radius, or actually, yeah, the minimum radius turn that BART could put on the track. And the reason for that was the mayor at the time was John Houlihan. Well, John Houlihan had his very good friend and neighbor who lived in Montclair owned a hardware store where a big center sits right now, across from Bill Louis' corner. But anyway, that complex, the owner did not want BART running the tunnel underneath his building. Underneath, it was going to be well underneath the building. But the owner of Simon's Hardware back then, like I said, good friend of John C. Houlihan, demanded that BART move their planned underground construction from away from underneath his building. And so that's why it ended up on 9th Street and 8th Street, the two different lines. And then the 9th Street track has that really sharp bend as it turns to go to City Center. But that was, and John Houlihan, Mayor John Houlihan back then, it was a big scandal. And it literally stopped all plans for BART because Oakland is a major contributing factor in this. And without the mayor's signature back then on the right-of-ways and the all the different allowances that would allow BART to install the tracks underground, above ground, and everything. And so John C. Houlihan said that I will refuse to allow this project to move forward unless you change the route and route it away from underneath Simon's hardware, and they did. They ended up doing that, and it's an impact that's forever embedded in that system because of this crooked Oakland mayor and his friendship with that hardware store owner. And here's the sad part. When BART first started breaking ground in 1967, 1968, Simon's Hardware had already gone bankrupt. Yeah, they went bankrupt in 1966. So they closed up and the building was torn down. But the plans were already drawn and they were already underway and had been signed off. So they couldn't change that deviation from the original plan, and that deviation lives with us today and forevermore in BART. And so these are some of just the crooked things that City of Oakland has gone through, some of the controversies. Also, John Houlihan, he resigned. Yes, he resigned. He wasn't recalled. He was resigned. And the reason why he resigned, he was indicted on federal embezzlement charges. So, yeah, he was a real crooked one. And we've seen that with a lot of mayors of other cities and even this city. If you go back, look at the history of Oakland mayors prior to 1900, it's an eye-opener, and it's really good reading for you, those of you that enjoy history and reading about history, which is one of my things. And so go back there and look at some of the early crookedness of Oakland, and then you start seeing, well, Shane Tao is just keeping up the old tradition of the good old boys club. Thanks for joining me today. Hopefully that gives you some insight into the recalls that have happened here in the city of Oakland. And I was really distressed hearing that after leaving the city clerk's office yesterday and speaking with one of the folks about the recall and signing up to become your next mayor. And they said there's not an immediate runoff, and that they are going to move forward with the November 5th election or recall, and whatever the outcome is, that means that's how they will move forward. If the recall is a yes, it's approved and she is recalled, Mayor Shane Tao stays in office. And so what happens in the new year is that we're going to start an election process. And so that means that Lauren Taylor, myself, and anybody else that is going to vie for the mayor's office, we're going to be busy in the new year. And likely the election will be held in June of next year, June of 2025. So we're looking at nearly a year before we even have a solution to if we remove Shane Tao. So that's one of the downsides of what's going on. We have a lot of inefficiencies here in the city of Oakland. They should have run an immediate runoff like what California did with Governor Gray Davis, and that's how we got Arnold Schwarzenegger in that recall back in 2002. That's how it should be done. And the replacement mayor needs to take office as soon as possible to turn things around, not dragging things out. Here, Shane Tao will be only 1 year short of a full term. And so this is why recalls in Oakland have not been successful, because of the feet dragging that goes on and the constant inefficiencies that Oakland keeps throwing at the election process. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.